Hey everyone, it's B, and you're listening to another episode of the In Your Feelings podcast. So, for those of you who are new here, In Your Feelings is a podcast I created with Thought Catalog that dives into the very real and very messy aspects of life that we are all navigating. I create these episodes just to have honest conversations about things like relationships and moving on and worthiness, things that can feel really disheartening and confusing, in the hopes that throughout the episode, you feel less alone in what you're feeling, and you're reminded that you aren't the only person who is dealing with certain things in life. And today, for example, we're going to be diving into what it means to move on in an age of social media. I really wanted to create an episode on this because moving on and having your heart broken and navigating all of that space within your mind and your soul and your thoughts and your anxieties, and it's difficult. It's so unbelievably difficult to move forward. And now that we are so primed to integrate so much of our lives and our relationships online, it can be even harder to move forward because we're constantly in proximity to the people we're trying to move on from. And I think that brings me really nicely into my first point. When we date someone, we become a part of their lives, and we create beautiful memories with them. We meet their family and their friends, and we dream with them, and we hold so much hope within ourselves for a future with them. So much of that hope and so much of those relationships and memories are not only ingrained in our everyday physical lives, but they're also ingrained in our social lives. I mean, their friends become our friends, and we add them to Facebook or we follow them on Instagram. We do the same with their family members. We share updates and photos, and we follow pages that our partners send us, and so on and so on. We literally build out a little corner of our space that belongs to them in a way, a corner that will always remind us of them. So breaking up and having to learn how to let go of someone slowly is made even harder because we're constantly reminded of them and their presence in our lives, even if we've tried to distance ourselves. And this shows up in so many ways. You can be taking the steps to move on. You can be doing all of the right work to come to terms with your breakup. You can be doing so well. But sometimes you're scrolling social media and you see something that genuinely just makes your heart drop. It can be a Facebook notification of a memory that you two shared. It can be an image their friend posted that had them in it. It can be an image from an account you follow that reminds you of them, that reminds you of the trips you wanted to take or the dreams you had for one another. It can be a quote you read on your timeline. There are truly so many instances on social media that almost boomerang us back into our past relationships. And dealing with that can be really daunting because those reminders are everywhere, and sometimes they're in places we least expect them. So if that's where you're at, if you're struggling with social media right now in the midst of a breakup, I want you to know that you are so unbelievably human. This is something that so many people deal with. This is something that a lot of human beings struggle with when they're trying to move forward, because not only is it emotionally draining, not only can it turn a really beautiful day into one where you are plagued with memories or thoughts of this person, but it's also really, really hard to control. And it's hard to control because social media is quite literally created through algorithms that send you the kind of content you've interacted with the most. So even if you do unfollow certain people or stop interacting with the person you're trying to move on from, you can still be served content that reminds you of them. You can still have those algorithms send certain things your way that dig into your nostalgia and make it hard for you to trust your progress. And within that, Moving on in an age of social media has another layer of difficulty because we are deeply, deeply curious human beings. And algorithms and feeds and explore pages and all of those aspects to the online world were created to feed into our curiosity. Sometimes, when we're dealing with the loss of someone, we often feel the need to check up on them. We tether ourselves to them long after the relationship has ended because we're curious as to how they're doing. We're curious as to what they're up to. And I don't think this is spoken about very often. This is something I think a lot of people feel shame about because no one wants to be the person who is checking up on their ex, and no one wants to be openly admitting that they lurk or that they sometimes get into these vortexes where they might peek at someone who left a flirty comment on their photo or things along those lines. But it's so human, and literally everyone I know does it. I have done it. We have all done it. And if you haven't done it, then you have willpower that deserves to be celebrated because it's difficult. It's so hard. And it's hard because the amount of access we have and the amount of ease social media gives us really does make it seem harmless. We can search a name and see updates about their lives, and it can be quick and painless, and it almost scratches that itch. And while logic tells us this is definitely not healthy for a healing heart, that curiosity and that ease and that proximity makes it almost impossible not to check in from time to time, not to peek into the life of someone who is such an integral part of our own. Because at the end of the day, nothing hurts more than sharing so much with another human being and then having them become a stranger. And this is something we mourn the most when we're dealing with a breakup. The fact that we know so much about a person. The fact that we have so much memory and so much beauty inside of ourselves because of them. The fact that we know their dreams and their aspirations, and we know all of their flaws and all of their innermost thoughts, but now we're on the outside of that hurts. We don't get to experience that comfort anymore. We don't have access to them in our lives, but we do have access to them in an almost two-dimensional way. And that access can feel weirdly comforting, even when you are trying to move forward. And I think that's why this habit is such a common thing. We hold on to the people we have lost in any way we can. We create that proximity. We take advantage of that access because we miss them and we miss who they were in our lives. Or we don't miss them. Or they really hurt us and we look at their profiles and we check up on them to gain clues into why things ended, or to catch them in a lie, or to have an I told you so moment. I've seen both aspects of this kind of need to check in, to lurk, as they say. And people either, miss the person and want to feel like they're still a part of their lives, or they genuinely want to affirm within themselves that they're better off. So seeing flirty comments or seeing this person in certain stories acting a certain way, it can help you to know the breakup was the right choice, even if it feels a little disheartening in the moment. I mean, there's so much to this, so much psychology and so much heart. And at the end of the day, this could be an hour-long episode within itself. But I think it comes down to there's nothing to be ashamed of if you're doing this right now. There's nothing to be embarrassed of. Social media is so integrated into our lives. We have lost our ability to easily distance ourselves from the people we are moving on from. And so to self-regulate that distance, that can be hard. It can take a lot of awareness and a lot of effort to almost stop yourself from going down those rabbit holes, to almost stop yourself from looking, to unfollow certain people, and so on. And also, in the past, when you were dealing with a breakup, that distancing was somewhat already done for you. You didn't have to worry about picking up your flip phone and seeing photos of your ex with someone new. You didn't have to worry about all of the ways social media boomerangs the past back to you. And don't get me wrong, offline breakups are still so hard. They're still so heavy and messy, and they weigh down a human soul. But they're distanced. You have that space to fill your life with other things. You aren't constantly given the opportunity to check up on someone. To do so, you'd have to literally go see them physically or ask your friends about them and so on. It's less easy. But social media changed that. The game changed. Moving on has changed. So if you're struggling with this right now, I want you to be gentle with yourself. You're trying your best and you're navigating a broken heart in a world that is constantly reminding you of the person who broke it or held it, and that is hard. Be patient with your healing. And with that being said, I wanted to give you a few tips that I know helped me when I was dealing with my breakup and dealing with this feeling of missing this person and having that affirmed by social media in so many ways. These are just little reminders and little things you can start working yourself up to doing to really focus on moving forward and to really regulate the way you're approaching your online healing just as much as your offline healing. So my first little reminder is that moving on and distancing yourself from someone can be hard because social media reinforces curious and harmful habits by giving us so much access to those we once loved. Studies have shown that following someone you might have negative or intense feelings for, like an ex, becomes an incredibly habit-forming behavior at a neurological level. This is a brain thing. If you feel like the habit is almost out of your control, that you can't really stop yourself from looking, I want you to understand that it's so much more than you realize. But the more you choose to nurture this behavior, the more of a habit it becomes, and we know this. And I also know it can feel silly to call it by its name. I know it can feel shameful to admit that you might be addicted to checking up on someone or to lurking them or to seeing what they're up to, but it's quite literally something so many people struggle with when they're dealing with a breakup on a biological level just as much as an emotional level. And then I think within that, there's also another layer of guilt because at the end of the day, you know that you're causing yourself pain. You know that in order to move on, at least when a loss is fresh and you still haven't maybe come to terms with a breakup or forgiven or found peace within having to move forward, you know and you wish you could stop engaging in this behavior. So when you don't, many times you'll end up feeling worse about yourself and what you're doing. Instagram stalking and social media stalking really does damage your ability to move forward, and it really does keep you focused on your past relationship rather than being open to new relationships, romantic or otherwise. It can also take a toll on your image, your self-image, because it's usually based within comparison and within comparing yourself to what you see, which is, by the way, never the full story. But we make assumptions, and that can seriously, seriously harm our mental health. So the tip here is to be really aware of your urges before you act on them. When you feel the need to casually check up on your ex, I want you to remind yourself how it makes you feel. You have to trust that you'll know when to draw the line with yourself. And because it is so habit forming, it can be really helpful to have a replacement habit in check for yourself. Challenge yourself every single time you want to peek at your ex's profile to maybe go for a walk or to take 5 minutes to sit down and meditate or write a list of all of the negative ways it affects you. Really try your best to work on that self-awareness. Really work on creating that boundary with yourself. Because in the long run, those boundaries will help you to break the habit, and breaking that habit allows you to start moving on in the most genuine way. And that brings me to my next tip, which is to try your best to stay true to yourself while you're navigating a breakup on social media. Moving on can cause us to want to showcase our healing, and Social media gives us a lot of opportunity to sensationalize our healing and to paint a really positive picture of our lives while we're trying to move forward. And this is something a lot of people do. It's easy to use your own updates as a means of revenge or as this way to broadcast that you're doing okay, or that you're winning the breakup, or that you're moving on faster, or anything along those lines. But that's also empty, and it doesn't actually help you in the long run. Because when all of that distraction and all of that instant gratification is gone, you're still left with the memory of someone, and you're still left with your hurt, and you still have to heal all of those bruises on your heart. So taking the time to really step back and to stay true to who you are, to not feel pressured into presenting this perfectly okay version of yourself to others, really means that you are showing up for yourself honestly. And you don't have to force being okay if you're not. You don't have to win the breakup. You don't have to post smiling photos or stories that depict that you're holding it all together. You just have to be genuine with yourself. Because when you aren't, when you're putting on a show, you make your moving on less about yourself and how you feel, and you start to try to move on for other people. You start to try to rush your healing, and that just slows it down. Obviously, do things in your life that bring you joy. Hang out with your friends. Post the things that you genuinely want to post. Share what you genuinely want to share. But try to be aware of when you're doing it to get your ex's attention. Be aware of the intention behind it. Because if you're only posting to see if they look at your story or to ensure that they know you're fine without them, that's harmful. And if you were to see your ex doing that, or if your ex is doing that and it hurts you in turn, you don't have to meet that fire with more fire. Don't match that energy. Your healing is personal. It is so deeply personal. It is yours and yours alone. So go at your own pace and do not try to dress it up or fake it or use it as a means of slighting someone. You deserve more than that. Your heart deserves more than that. Just don't play games with your healing. And that leads me to my third tip, which is to simply try to distance yourself as much as possible, even if it's hard, especially when it's hard. And even if you feel like you don't have to, even if you feel like you can be friends, take some space. And this was one of the most difficult lessons for me, if I'm being completely honest. Because when you care deeply about someone, when you genuinely enjoyed having them in your life, it can be really, really difficult to walk away from all of that. It can be really difficult to let them turn into a stranger. And the truth is, you were with someone because you got along with them. You loved having them in your life. You liked their company. And the people we date know us on a level that most don't. It's normal to want to keep that kind of comfort and that kind of friendship in your life. But social media can really blur those lines and those boundaries. And so at first, if following your ex and seeing their updates constantly and following all of their friends still and being inundated with stories and little reminders, if that's genuinely hurting your heart, if that's making it difficult to heal, you need space. And you aren't a bad person for needing that space. It's okay. Even if things ended on good terms, you need to give yourself permission to choose your healing over choosing that friendship right now. In the future, you might be able to see all of that stuff and find peace within it, but when a breakup is fresh, you really do need that boundary, because everything you see is going to feel like you're missing out. When you see someone living their life, even if you're genuinely happy for them, it can kind of break your heart to know that you don't get to be a part of that any longer. It can kind of break your heart to feel like you're on the outside looking in. So taking away that trigger, even if it's just for a little while you come back home to yourself and come to terms with the ending. Sometimes taking that space is the best thing you can do for yourself. So even if it's just for a little while, block them, or mute them, or unfollow them. Whatever you have to do to feel in control of your healing, do it. And for a lot of people, this actually looks like taking a mental break from social media as a whole. And I agree with that. Deleting Instagram or Facebook or setting a goal to give yourself a break can be really good for your mental health because it forces you to focus on your healing and on yourself. And you're less distracted and less likely to run into things that fill you with nostalgia or confused thoughts and feelings. And at the end of the day, a habit genuinely takes 21 days to break. So maybe starting there, really challenging yourself to detox socially will help you to find a new foundation within yourself, will help you to heal. And if you don't necessarily trust yourself to not re-download the apps, have your friend change the passwords. I know, if I'm being completely honest, I did this with Snapchat when it was still really popular. I overthink and my brain was all over the place. I gave my friend access to my account and I told her to change the password, and I've never gone on it again. That was necessary for me, even if it felt extreme at the time, and I'm so happy that I did it because it really, really helped me to heal. But I also understand that social media can be a really positive force for people, even when you are navigating a breakup. So if you are able to mute or unfollow your exes and to detox your feed from reminders of them by unfollowing mutual friends for the time being and really carving out your socials to be reflective of where you're at, focus on making sure to follow Instagram accounts that hit your heart in a beautiful way. Follow accounts of people who might be dealing with the same thing you're dealing with, or accounts of people who speak to the kind of healing you're going through. Follow all of those cute pages on Instagram that are filled with adorable images of baby goats or puppies. I'm literally not even kidding. It genuinely helps your brain. It helps you to see inspiring or encouraging or just downright basically cute things. It helps to take your mind off of the loss and to remind you of the goodness and the progress and the happiness that exists for you outside of your process. Sometimes days can be really, really hard, and you can be really in your head, and you can really overthink, and you can feel like there's a darkness inside of you. I know that sounds like I'm exaggerating, but breakups really, really hijack all of your thoughts and all of your feelings, and it can feel like you really are living in a gray cloud. And so sometimes, a moment in your day where you're scrolling on social media and you see a really adorable photo of a pig, or you see your beautiful friend smiling and you can feel her joy radiate out of the screen. Sometimes those are the best reminders that things are going to be okay. They hit your heart, and even if just for a moment, a second in your day, you feel a little pang of happiness, that is the best feeling, and it really, really does help you to kind of affirm within yourself that things are going to get better and that you can laugh again or, feel positive again. And on a positive note, my last tip is I just want you to remind yourself that you deserve to heal. You deserve to heal. Say that to yourself. You deserve to hear their name and not have your stomach flip. You deserve to see a photo of them and not feel like your chest is tightening at the thought of what you had. You deserve to believe that you are going to find something just as beautiful or beautifully different than what you shared. You deserve to be okay. You deserve to believe in the love that is coming for you, in the ability your heart has to fall for someone new. And this is going to be a little bit of tough love, but tough love is important when dealing with a breakup too. Yes, you're human. Yes, please be gentle with yourself. Be patient with your heart. Be patient with your healing. But also remind yourself what you deserve. And then think about all of the ways you might not be showing up for that. how you might be selling yourself short in actions or habits that you can genuinely work towards changing. Yes, you are human, and you should never vilify yourself for taking steps backwards in your progress. But when you foster a lot of awareness around that, when you can forgive yourself for maybe checking up on your ex and feeling hurt over it, when you can believe in your future and really show up for your healing and really respect yourself enough to choose yourself and let go, not just internally, but in every social way as well, that is really beautiful. That is you choosing to love yourself. That is you choosing to stop bringing past experiences into the ones that are waiting for you. And I think that is truly where healing begins. When you have a ruthless dedication to sticking up for yourself, to not hurting yourself, to choosing to distance yourself from actions that just end up making you sad, to really have that awareness, to really believe that you are worthy of healing. That's where it starts. That's where you begin. All right. Whew. Take a big, deep breath in and out, because this topic is so heavy and so overwhelming at times, and social media almost feels inescapable for so many people. And I know how hard it can be and how disheartening it can be to be constantly reminded of something that you shared with another person, and to wonder if they're moving on without you, and to maybe see that and to have all of those thoughts and feelings swirl within your mind and make you feel not good enough, or like you're being left behind, or anything along those lines. There are so many layers to this kind of healing. So I hope that some of these affirmations and some of these tips really reminded you that this is all a process and it's never linear, but there are a lot of things that you can slowly work yourself up to doing that will maybe help you stand up for your heart a little more, because breakups in an age of social media are very, very difficult, and you deserve to have control, and you deserve to understand that you're not alone in what you're going through and how you're dealing with navigating this kind of breakup in a very social world. Okay, thank you all so much for listening and for being here today with me. I really appreciate every single one of you, and I can't wait to make more episodes for you. So stay tuned until next week.